I'm in.
So can you share your screen and
Yeah, you want me to share the agenda?
the doc? Yeah. And the roadmap so that we can go through it and stuff like that. Thank you.
But of course.
See if anyone is joining us from. Hello. Hello.
All right, nice.
Zent is here. Okay, let's go through the roadmap first. And I didn't get, I wasn't able to give someone enough notice for a demo today. So I was thinking of giving a demo, but I didn't have enough time to prepare a presentation. So I did a bunch of research in the process IP stuff and try to figure out what's going on there. And I would like to have an open discussion about that and what it means and how we should use it and stuff like that. We have Housen here, who is recently a committer, so we can talk about some of the recent committers who got voted in, and if there are people who we can help out in terms of more attention for the reviews and stuff like that. And that's about all I wanted to talk about today. If anyone has any other topics, please bring them forward. And I would like to solicit for future demos so that we can have couple of demos for every meeting going forward.
I guess demos includes like just slides about stuff.
Right. Yeah. So I wanted to clarify that point. When at the last meeting, I was talking about how I think we can talk about just existing practice, like coding practices in Mesos and things like that that are relevant to us, and that it doesn't necessarily have to be a live demo. So it could be just a presentation about some of the things you learned. Some things that you feel like other people should know about or would find valuable for other people to know about. And so it doesn't have to be necessarily a live demo of something. It could be just a presentation or even just a discussion about a design that you have in mind, stuff like that.
But that's kind of like, if it's for discussions about proposals,
yeah,
that could easily get pretty long and detailed. I don't know whether that's
right. So what I mean is not necessarily a discussion, but a presentation of a, like, not necessarily, it doesn't have to be like you have to answer every question and stuff like that. But for example, Ben recently published the multi-role design doc, and I'm sure not every one of us have read it. I haven't had time to read it, but if we had a presentation which kind of maps out an overview of what we're looking at, and then encourages us to look at the design doc and dive into the details, it might be helpful and beneficial. So, okay, could you open up the roadmap, please? Okay. So let's just go through this and see if people are working on it. We don't have to go into too much detail as to what's happening there, but who's working on it and if there's anything new that we want to add to this list, we should do that. So I guess I'll start. Mesos on Windows. It's mainly me, Joseph, and Joris who are on it. I've been helping out to a small capacity, but there's work going on there. Currently, the latest thing that's been happening is adding Docker support on Windows and some issues around long file names. don't know too much about it. Don't really want to know too much about it. Let's see. Next one is improvements to partition or Mesos frameworks. Vinod is not here. Has a conflicting meeting. Anyone know anything about it?
Yeah. Any background?
Yeah.
It's working on
Sorry?
it. So any more context of this? So I didn't get to read.
So the context of it is that there is a feature that Neil have been working on, which adds a task. What was it? What's the state?
I guess the high level idea is like we didn't want the master to make decisions about killing things.
Oh, okay.
Because the master doesn't know what the application semantics are. So we wanted to just have the master tell the framework what's happening. Like we can't talk to this agent.
Okay.
And then if an agent does come back, we just tell the framework it's back, and the framework can take an action based on.
Yeah. I thought it was related to like about file system partitions or okay.
That might be a good topic for like some slides on like how it's going to work in the new world.
So I wonder how many framework authors have ever heard of this, because this do require some framework cooperation.
Yes.
Or code change from there.
Right.
So Marathon, we're talking to the Marathon team about it, but it's going to require signing up for a new capability to get these new status types. So by default, everything will work as it did before, and you'll get the slave lost and all the tasks will be killed. But you can opt in for your framework to be aware of this and get, finer grained.
So is there, for Kubernetes, is there a document like user.out framework guide or document framework authors to guide how to use it? And second is there a way to track which frameworks are actually using the plan to do it? And I feel like in terms of practical adoption, those signals are actually quite important for the authors. They will know who's doing this and what kind of issues you might have seen, and they know they're not alone on when adopting the feature.
Yeah, like a checklist of those important features.
Yeah, so there is a framework developer guide, but I don't think it goes into that much detail about the different capabilities.
And Neil definitely updated that when he was touching like task states. I don't know if he's yet added like the task gone stuff, but he's going to. But yeah, I mean, it might be good to have some other stuff set up to help people understand like what benefit they get from this feature. And maybe that's where like, if Neil made slides for this meeting, like we could maybe even use those slides to send out to the users. Here's what this is about.
But to be fair, this is not done yet, so.
Yeah, it's not nothing.
Yeah.
It's the kind of thing that could be good for a blog post when it's listed on.
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of the improvements, I don't know.
Which one, the third one?
The third one is the improved allocator performance. I don't think have worked on it, have you?
I haven't looked at the reviews. There's like one last thing that I think we just should do before we close this epic.
Okay.
And that's a review from Jacob.
Okay, so the status on that is Jacob had a last version which was sitting there, and I will have another review, and I think you have done the last run review.
I'm just looking at it now. It looks like I did, but it was
Right.
month and 2 weeks ago.
But after that, we had some benchmarks to prove that it actually improves the performance. And earlier versions of them were set up in a way that weren't necessarily showing, even though logically you think it's going to improve them. So we're going to work on some benchmark tests to make sure they're good. So that's work on my part.
Support for NVIDIA GPUs and Docker containerizer.
So IBM and NVIDIA are still working on that.
Okay.
It's a bit slow, but the plan is for us to just wait until they tell us that they think it's ready, and then we'll get it committed. but it's taking a bit of time.
IBM and who?
NVIDIA.
Okay, cool. Improvements to shared resources? Yeah,
That's in progress. We are adding improvements, tests. It's in progress.
okay. Support OCI HVAC.
OCI, yes, it's in progress. Ken has sent out some reviews,
Okay,
but I haven't had a chance to look at those yet.
support auto.
Yeah, the garbage.
Yeah,
collector.
so there's the garbage collection.
So what did you say?
Garbage collection,
I think we missed one, the previous one.
Oh, oops, sorry.
yeah, we haven't made any progress yet. We have some discussion, but haven't had a concrete plan yet.
Yeah, I'll try to send out the design work to circulate between smaller offices like
Okay.
around this weekend. I've been trying to see to some prototype about the get familiar with code.
Got it.
I think it's doable.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a bunch of review I need to do for you. The metric stuff.
Okay. Next one is support auto backend and unified containerizer.
So this one is really work. I think Gilbert already sent out a patch on this. He's rebasing to the current master. Once this is done, I'll do a review to commit those
Okay.
patches.
I actually have a question about like the naming of it. Are we calling it universal containerizer? Is it unified? Is it different in different contexts or?
So I think all the JIRA tickets do call it unified containerizer.
Okay,
I'll say let's stick to that name. But in DCOS, I think they use a different name called Universal Container Runtime.
Yeah, so I think the DCOS marketing term is Universal Container Runtime because we want to differentiate against the Docker runtime. But in Mesos, it's the Unified Containerizer versus the Docker Containerizer.
okay, so we'll stick with unified
Yeah,
in
I also
Mesos.
stick with that because I think like all the talks and all the slides, all the doc use Unified Containerizer pretty good.
Okay. Great.
The awkward thing is when you grab this words in the code, you actually can't find it.
That's true. We call it Mesos Containerizer.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the other hand, yeah, like people started talking about Mesos containerizer. So what should we use also this, or just like we should stick to the unified containerizer?
I mean, I guess you're using this word to capture the notion that the Mesos containerizer now supports different kinds of images.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's still the Mesos containerizer, it just has additional support.
Okay.
So
Regarding the code, it's going to be very hard to do the renaming.
Hmm.
It's a lot of code. But we could, but I don't think that's necessary.
In the future, there will hopefully be no more Docker containerizer. There will only be the Mesos containerizer, which is unified, and then we don't even have to worry about calling it anything other than the containerizer.
I don't know if that's gonna happen.
I think, yeah, I don't think.
Like
Okay.
a few years in the future.
Yeah.
The containerizer.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move on. Our limit support to Mesos containerizer.
Yeah, I think we can close that one. I think it's,
Okay,
I just need to create a file
you have to
documentation.
commit the documentation. Okay,
And that should be it.
okay. Are you gonna be able to update the ticket? Because it says.
Yeah, I'll close the ticket once, and remove that item from this list.
Okay.
And close that ticket.
Okay,
Is that the plan too?
Oh, 1.1, sorry. Wait. Oh, sorry, 1.2, yeah.
So just to understand, this is like a running list for like, as as windows of time slides on.
so that's a good question that I wanted. Yeah, it might be worth discussing, because like the other thing that I noticed is we just say less than 3 months, and we don't know when the end of the 3 months is. And so like, do we want to, you say like this is like for Q1, and then keep the closed tickets in here, and then like kind of start a new one when going to Q2 or something like that? Or do we kind of have like a sliding windows of like the next 3 months from now kind of thing? I don't know. I think I think doing it by quarter might be useful. Just seems cleaner to me. Sliding things seems tricky. And we could just have a deadline of say like end of March and see what we get done by then. But
Just trying to grab some general sense of the minor version upgrade. So how is it related to our roadmap? Like in 3 months, we will release like one minor version, or
So there's a release policy that we have around minor versions.
Mhm.
Like when you say minor version,
yeah, major, minor, and patch.
you're referring to the second.
Yeah.
We also have a policy there, which I think is 2 months.
Okay. Yeah. So
We try to do time-based instead of feature-based.
okay. Thanks.
Yeah, but we're not doing very good on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also like for patch release, it's close to 2 months as well.
I thought it was like monthly.
Oh, sorry, patch.
Yeah, monthly we have an opportunity to do a patch release. Well, if there's anything available.
But there are like some patch release that we're on time. So 28.3 gap is like 3 months or 4 months.
And we support old versions for up to 6 months. So theoretically, there could be 6 patch releases before we retire the minor version.
so let's go through the rest of G's tickets. Support container network interface.
I think we can close down. I think there's some remaining work that needs to be done, like getting stats, and support availability of configuration. But yeah, I think we can close that app and create some new tickets.
Yeah, I mean, start a new epic.
Okay.
The basic container network interface is down, so some pieces are.
Okay. Yeah, and let's for now not worry about removing the tickets from this list.
Okay.
Just close the ticket and it'll show up here. Let's see, support C group and namespace in Unified Containerizer.
Yeah, House Stan is online. I think he sent out a review. It's mainly blocked on me right now to review those patches. Yeah, it's reviewable.
Cool. Support the rest of C group subsystems.
Yeah, it's
I'm so that's umbrella ticket for umbrella epic like for some smaller ones, including block IO and CPU set and PIDs and as well as the rest. And I'm currently working on the design of the block IO ones, and currently I had some internal reviews on the proto buff, like like the declaration and also some stats collection part. And I think we can, after that, internal release to approve, and we will be able to submit like a quick upstream review request.
Yeah. And also Houston is working on some of the rest of the subsystems support.
Okay. Well, you guys are working together? Okay.
Yes.
Great. Awesome. We have Joseph online. Publicize the test infrastructure for modules. Joseph?
Yeah, so the ones that I'm shepherding, the module changes and the CLI are sort of on hiatus at the moment, but not for very long.
Okay.
The one that's I'm actively focusing on is the CMake one. And we're spinning up a couple of people that are going to do this as well.
Okay. Great. So what's the status of the CMake stuff?
So CMake build is now, like you can start developing against the CMake build for some general tickets.
Okay.
Essentially, if you do a configure and disable Python and Java with no other options, that's what you get in CMake.
Okay.
That includes all the tests, and I'm keeping it up to date as necessary.
Okay.
Just because, well, we do have like CIs that will tell you if things break, and things are breaking.
Okay.
Like we've exposed, I guess, a couple of failures in glibc that don't come up in automake because of how libtool does its linking. It's very obscure.
Okay, and then is the plan like once it's at parity with auto tools for some time, we'll look at removing auto tools, or?
Yeah, I guess as soon as we reach parity, I guess there'll still be a period of time when we're maintaining both build systems.
Right.
As we get all the developers to switch over. But then, yeah, we will be deprecating the automake system.
Okay. Great.
Yeah, so I'd encourage people to try it out. It's instead of configure, it's just CMake.
Right, but you said that like, can I use other options other than the disable Java and disable Python, or not all the options are added yet?
Well, as in the Java options, Java and Python options don't even exist, as in they're not in the build.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Yeah, and the other options are not in the build either.
All right.
Yeah.
But wait.
What will be the plan for Python and Java things if we ever want to switch to CMake as a default?
Yeah, as in those are things that we're going to be adding over time. Like we haven't added SSL or libevent or the network isolator, a bunch of other things that we haven't added yet.
Bundled binaries, unbundled binaries.
Or like installed module dependencies.
Yeah.
We haven't added like the flag hardening, things like that.
I see. Okay. etcd-based master, contender, and detector module?
Right. Those are sort of blocked on me.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll get back to those reviews at some point.
They're still being worked on?
Yeah, just reviews.
Those are outside of Mesos, from what I understood last time I talked to you. There's
a Mesos component, and then the actual module is not going to land in Mesos. It'll just be an open source repo somewhere.
Sounds weird.
Yeah, it does.
But okay. Improvements to task group support.
Which one?
Improvements to task group support.
Okay, so this is the pod one, I see.
Yes, I believe so. Sorry?
Well, I don't remember what things are. Okay, I need to commit the documentation. And I think the remaining tickets that needs to commit.
Okay. Pretty big, I think it looks like.
Yeah. Wait, who did that?
Did what?
Like, I didn't create that one. Oh, we know did that one. Okay.
Oh, the
We
ticket.
move all the ticket, like the rest of the pod ticket to this one. I closed the original one.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Because when possible, we like to close out an epic with a minor version release so that we can actually, say that we shipped pods in 1.1 or 1.2 and then have an epic for improvements in the next release.
Okay.
Yeah, we haven't made any, much progress on this one.
Okay.
Stuff.
Okay. Next one is investigate restoring tasks and executors after machine reboots.
Wait, restartable tasks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Mega has a new version of Design Doc, and she, I think 2 days ago, sent an email to the same thread that she first announced. So I encourage people to take a look.
Who is it?
One of Apple
Okay. Okay. Okay, I see. Okay, cool. Okay, so design phase. Anyone know what's going on with the operator and scheduler API improvements? No? Okay, let's skip over those. There's a support for container attaching container exec, debugging stuff.
Yeah, that's very much in progress.
Right, Kevin is actively working on that.
Yeah, Kevin and a few other people.
Okay. I've actually asked Kevin to give a demo or a presentation on that next meeting. So he'll show us where he's at with that at the next meeting. Add support for frameworks to receive resources for multiple roles.
That's in progress. I think if you refresh this page, it should show in progress. But yeah, IBM's helping with that. We started working on it. It's split into 2 phases. And that ticket is just phase 1. So I need to add phase 2 to this list.
Okay.
But yeah, that's in progress. The next one, hierarchical roles, is not in progress. There's
Okay.
a design doc, but
Oh, has the hierarchical role design doc gone out?
oh, I might have not published that.
Okay. Okay. I
But
don't remember
okay,
seeing.
I didn't publish it.
Okay. But it's ready to go out.
I could publish it. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
We're not planning to work on it immediately, so
Oh, I see.
it would definitely sit there for a while.
Right. Okay.
That's fine.
Okay.
I can publish it.
Cool.
When these 2 phases were already intentionally split into at least 2 different language versions.
Yes.
Not necessarily. The 2 phases for multi-role support
Yes.
are. That's what he's asking. Yeah. The first phase is let frameworks register multiple roles.
Mhm.
The second phase is let frameworks modify their roles. So that's a non-trivial thing to do. So it's a second phase.
So it's mostly development phasing, not necessarily
Yeah.
operate phasing.
No, just development. Like the first phase doesn't try to, like it prevents framework from changing their roles at all. Still, we kept that from what we have already. And the second phase is just let people change their roles, even if you're a single role framework.
Are both phases designed?
Yeah, so in that design doc, there's phase 1 and phase 2. And the epics are for phase 1 and phase 2.
Are there any implications of shipping, like working on multi-role and hierarchical separately? Or are they?
Well, that's what we wanted to figure out by thinking about them design-wise at the same time.
Okay.
And no, not.
So you can do them separately. And
Yeah.
do those that's fine. Okay. Cool. Asha, client-side integration. I haven't touched it in a long time. I have to like mess with Jenkins at some point and figure that stuff out. But I'm still planning to do it. I'm still hoping to do it soon. But Neil has actually been using it locally to find some issues in our code base and pushing patches that says caught by client ID stuff. So it seems like it is useful. It will be useful as a rolling CI thing. So I'm still very much looking forward to do it. I just haven't had time. Executive authentication.
I can speak to that.
Okay.
I'm still working on that design and was hoping to have sent it out already, but I think we're taking a moment to think about longer term security plans for Mesos and how executive authentication will fit into that before we send the design out for review. So hoping to send that out soon, but still working on the design.
Is there like a very brief summary about the mechanism that's going to be used for this to basically get an idea of what it is?
Yeah. Well, I think so one thought we have is that a good end goal to reach is something similar to what Kubernetes provides, which is the ability to launch a task or an executor that is passed an identity from its scheduler or inherits some identity from the scheduler. It gives it a global identity in the cluster. But since that's going to require frameworks to make changes, and it would be nice to have some supporting infrastructure so that operators don't have to manage like a whole separate set of executor credentials or task credentials. We're trying to plan out an MVP in which the agent can generate a default credential for every executor that it launches. So it can establish secure communication with the executor without any configuration from the operator, from the outside. So that would let the operator just flip a switch, get all executor communication authenticated right off the bat. And then we can work toward implementing this world where frameworks all the time are passing credentials or passing some identity down to their tasks and executors. Does that make sense?
Yeah. The framework involved, that's like an extension? Or okay, so they don't have to? I guess I didn't.
What do you mean?
Basically the last sentence, I guess I didn't hear that clearly.
Yeah, so the goal was that we can have, so that frameworks don't have to know about this, and we can, have we can have auto-generated credentials that the executor will automatically register with, for default executors at least. Custom executors may have to, custom executors with the V1 API are going to have to do it all themselves anyway. But they can be given the credentials automatically that they can use to put in a header. But then the framework generated ones, we can add that as a second stage potentially, where frameworks can opt in to give, to override the auto-generated credentials, or you could remove the auto-generated credentials and require framework-generated credentials in your cluster if you wanted.
Okay. All right, I think we're through here. Can we go back to the agenda? Do we have anyone who added stuff here? No. Okay. So we're about to pay. Okay. So the lib process IP stuff, I definitely haven't figured all of it out, and maybe some of you can actually help me understand some parts of it that I don't understand. But the issue that I ran into with it was that there were a bunch of people who were actually confused about the process IP. There are a bunch of tickets in which like we can't register, we can't connect top to the master, blah blah. And over a long period of time, I was like, I don't know what's happening there. They seem to have figured it out. And then because I usually run the master and the agents on the local box, and I don't have to say anything there for it to have it working. And one time I tried to run the Mesos master on a remote box, and I wanted to run my modified marathon from my local machine and add it, connect it to the master. And for whatever reason, it wasn't working, and the solution came down to, oh, you have to set the web process IP. And so I was like, okay, I think I should figure out what this is all about, because it seems pretty mysterious to a lot of people. So what I found is that there are flags / environment variables, which are one-to-one related. But the ones that today are there are IP, port, advertise IP, and advertise port. And it seems like based on G's recent email, turns out to be October, but the advertise IPs at the advertise part seems relatively new. So for my case, what was happening was, because the remote box, I guess, was on somewhere in the cloud, when I just started the master like I do normally, when we go to do the host lookup to get the IP that I get back is some private IP, and then so the master isn't actually listening to the IP in which I'm trying to register a call. So then the solution was set the lib process IP to the external IP, and then I was able to get connected, which works. But with this advertise IP stuff, it actually changes things a little bit, where I could have actually also set the advertise IP in order for master to tell me where it is. And as long as the master is listening to a lib process IP that it's allowed to listen on, for example, 0000, it would have still gotten my register message, right? Because I would have hit the external IP from my local box, and because master is listening to 0000, it would have been able to pick that up and run with it. And it would have sent me back a message with the lib process advertise IP, and I would have been able to get back to it, etc. And so that was kind of interesting. And the advertise IP stuff, I learned that it comes into play because of cases where you could be, you could have a mapping from the environment in which you're in and the address to which something external needs to hit in order to get to me. And that was not obvious, but I understand the need for it. For example, I guess if we have a lib process instance running inside of a container that has a port mapping or something like that, then we need to set the lib process IP import to the container port and have the advertise IP import to the one that is mapped to the host, right? So it seems like I'm getting a lot of nods. So it seems like most of you guys already know all of this, which is great. But I figured it could be helpful for some people.
Do you think we need to improve documentation around that stuff?
Yeah, there's some tech that in the
Probably. I think some of it is just was also because we describe it pretty succinctly in the flag description, for example. And I don't really see what I was trying to do for this presentation / demo thing was actually to come up with a, similar to what we have as an architectural diagram for Mesos, to have a diagram in which we can kind of show this entity will talk to this entity through the lib process advertise IP that it exports, and show that there's two connections going back and forth, and that we actually send a message over with the advertise IP import embedded in it for the other entity to reply with, stuff like that, right? It's so that it's easier to see in a overview, in picture form, as opposed to trying to reason about what are they there for. Like if we just had boxes, like here's a local box, here's a container, this is the container IP port, here's a mapping, and the process IP would be set to this, and the advertise IP would be set to the external thing, and therefore you get the connection.
Yes, in most of the cases, the process IP should be 0000.
Right, and so that was.
So you can think of the process IP just the IP on the bind to.
Yes.
And advertise IP is that you want to advertise your IP to some other entity, especially in the process agent.
Right, and so that's.
So most likely, the address you want to bind to is local, any local, 0.0.0.0.
Right. And so this is something that actually changed recently, right? Because with your proposal.
No, it's not. This doesn't change recently. I mean, this changed when we introduced this lib process and advertise IP. So before that, there's no people use this lib process IP to serve as the advertise IP basically. Because we don't distinguish between these two. But right now we have the way to distinguish what's the bind IP and what's the advertise IP then.
So from digging through the code, what I found is that if we don't specify IP and port, lib process IP and lib process port, then today we bind to 0000. 2 or 3 days ago, we bound to 127.0.0.1.
2 or 3 days ago. Yeah, that was a bug. I think.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
We can just fix that one.
That's what I'm saying. That changed recently. We just fixed that recently. And so before, if you didn't specify IP and port, you would have bound to localhost. And even if you
actually no, localhost previously is not 0000. We changed the.
Oh, that's what happened?
Yeah, we changed the constant. Because it's confusing. Localhost people think it's like 127.0.
As I did while
Yeah.
looking through the
But
code.
actually code is like 0.0.0.0.
Okay.
We changed that constant code.
Oh, so it wasn't actually a bug.
It's not a bug. There's other bugs that we need to fix. But not
Okay.
this one.
Okay. Okay, cool.
So default relating address is just changed from zero to 127.
No, we haven't changed that. So if you don't set any _IP or __ port, it's gonna be 0.0.0.0.
Yeah,
port is 0.
So like if the announced IP can be configured instead of automatically chosen.
Yeah, advertised IP is usually for things like a
Right.
DNet. You have
Right.
a net environment. You have a private IP port mapped to a public IP port.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's
Like-
scenario.
change that when you need to, and that would be cumbersome. So yeah, that would be great to have that.
Yeah, but there's some bug in that email I sent out. There's some bug that we need to fix.
Okay.
Especially around how isolators set those environment variables. And we have a hard-coded environment variable setting on the processing underscore IP inside our code base, and then we have to remove that one. Yeah, there's some check that needs to be clear.
Okay. So in terms of like typical scenarios, is it true that you basically never set the process IP and port, but you do sometimes set advertised IP and port?
If you're in if your master is under a firewall and you have to
Right.
use network address translation to be able to access to the master,
Uh-huh.
so you probably need to use that. Like say you have a master, okay, maybe it's a different way. So your master is in a public zone, but your agent is in a private zone. So in order for master to talk to agent, well, hold on, anyway, if you need some network address translation between agent and master, you have to use advertised IP, and person shouldn't use the process underscore IP because that should always be 0. Let's just keep it unset.
I see.
Because you really want to change. You probably if you want to bind to an address, you probably just want to bind to all the available address on that box. Very specific address, unless you have some security concern that I only bind to this address.
So it would still be useful in some cases. Like we shouldn't just get rid of it.
Yeah.
And just make it hard coded to 0.0.0.0.
Yeah, we shouldn't, because some people might just say, hey, I only want to bind to 127.0.0.1. Well, no. No, you probably don't want to bind to 127.
Servers with multiple links, right? It's very common, servers with multiple links. So usually what happens is in most of these servers, there will be a management port that most of the management traffic is actually running. So you want to bind a master to that particular IP address so that traffic just flows on that particular subnet, all the control traffic. So you have that particular flexibility, so it makes sense to bind it to a specific IP address so that all that traffic is a particular subnet.
Especially if you have two IPs for that box.
Two or multiple IPs on the box.
Right.
Also, this would be useful when you have multiple internet adapters.
Exactly. So if you have multiple adapters.
Yeah, and sometimes Docker would also set up the Docker 0 adapter through virtual adapter, and that would, if that's not on, and it could be cumbersome.
So the part, so there's two things that I wanted to mention. One is what I still don't quite have grasp on is how all of this stuff relates to Etsy hosts. I think it comes into play if you don't set anything and we do a host name lookup to get the IP to use that as the advertised IP. So if we have the Etsy host set up such that your host name resolves to the correct IP, but is that required, or does that just work by default normally?
Depends on the distro.
Depends on the distro.
Yeah. So basically, most Linux distributions have something called Etsy nswitch.com.
Okay.
So the nswitch.com tells you what all to look up to actually resolve a particular host name. So there's a host field and then an nswitch.com. Usually it'll be files, then DNS, and then my host name. So files refers to Etsy hosts. So the
I
first
see.
lookup, so the glibc resolver will go Etsy
I
host,
see.
look up that, then it'll try to do a DNS query, and then it'll do a query to the kernel saying, tell me what the IP address for my hosting. Usually all three will be set in most distros. That's what I've seen, at least in CentOS and Ubuntu.
Okay.
So it should just work if the hostname is there, and you do a get hostname and then get ADR and go on hostname, and everything should just work out of the box. There shouldn't be any problem. You don't need to specifically set up Etsy host in that particular case. But let's say that my host name thing is not there, then you probably need to map the host name to some IP address, and then you probably need to put it in host, because that host name is not going to be setting in a DNS server. So that's the only case where I can think of where you probably need to set up the Etsy host, but in most cases you won't need to do that.
Okay. Okay. I'll follow up with you on that part actually.
Sorry, get rid of self-detecting. Just to use any.
So if you don't specify the libprocess IP right now, I guess it just binds to 0.0.0, which is fine. But I think it does a get host.
Well, but if you specify the precise IP, you won't do a host lookup.
Yeah.
To get the IP that you want to advertise.
Yeah.
If you don't set it, then it will try to do a
get host name,
get address info.
Yeah.
Right, I understand, but the proposal is don't do that.
The proposal is don't do
Don't do which part? Don't do which part, sorry? Don't do which part?
So right now, I don't remember the code exactly, but if you don't specify the libprocess IP or set it to 0.0.0.
Yes.
Right now, the libprocess first does a get host by name for some reason.
This is the process advertise IP.
No, this is the libprocess initialization where it does process initialization. I think it does a get host name. I think I sent the code yesterday.
Yeah, I don't think
we're having this discussion yesterday.
I just looked today. Get host name is actually the last thing we do.
Oh, that's the last thing we do?
Yeah.
So okay.
If nothing is if advertise IP is not set, then we do guest host name to get some IP to send to advertise.
So in that case,
because we can't advertise 0.0.0.0.
Yeah.
So that's why we try to get some IP to advertise.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's
We
right.
don't
That
plan to
makes
change
sense.
that.
So I get that part. So the last thing I want to mention is that the master and agent both have a host name flag and a host name lookup / no host name lookup flag. And looking at it, I assumed intuitively that it would be it would be related to the IP and port somehow, where if I set the host name, maybe it looks up the IP related to that host name and use that as the advertised IP or something along those lines. And it turns out it's actually a cosmetic thing where it just shows up in logs and it shows up on UI. And I think we kind of maybe use it for maintenance, but we actually the host name flag has nothing to do with the IP and port. And the host name lookup is actually just for the host name. It also has nothing to do with the IP port, advertised IP and advertised port. So that one was kind of confusing.
So this seems to suggest that if we set the host name to a particular value, that's what goes into the zookeeper nodes?
But it doesn't.
Oh, it doesn't? Okay.
It doesn't, because we actually.
Yeah, I thought the agents would then use that particular name to resort to the master or something.
Oh, so this is just untrue.
I believe that is just untrue.
Okay.
So yeah, if we don't set any of the IPs and ports, for example, and we do get host name and resolve the IP and advertise those, this host name could not match the host name that corresponds to the IP that we're advertising, right?
Yes.
And I mean, we don't really use it for anything, so it's fine, but this should be just called name, is it, or something other name, because we're really just using it as an ID, I think, as a human readable ID, basically, because it shows up on logs and UI, but not really not really on.
This description is wrong, it seems, right? Like we shouldn't be setting it in the zookeeper nodes and.
No, the zookeeper part I think is just wrong.
This is wrong.
And the agent should report. Yeah, I think it does do that because it shows up on UI. But the zookeeper part I think is just wrong. We can dig deeper into it.
That might technically be in the master info that's stored in Zookeeper, but it might not be the primary.
That's probably true. That's probably true. Yeah.
Yeah, but this definitely says that it should advertise in Zookeeper.
Yeah.
Seems misleading.
Anyway, those weren't as related as I thought they were. Is my point. And that's it. So, I don't think I gave any new information here, but it was helpful for me. Seems like we have some that stuff that we need to dig through. So yeah, I think generally speaking, I think conversations like this is good for us, even if we're not talking about new things. So if others have discussions like this that I want to have going forward, let me know, write it down on the agenda, we'll talk about it. Almost done here, we have 2 minutes left. So as I mentioned, debugging will be presented by Kevin at the next meeting. I was wondering if, Ian, if you could talk about shared resources at some point. Is that being used right now? Because if it is, that's great.
Yeah, okay.
Like it doesn't have to be a demo even per se. You're free to give a demo, obviously, but you could just, maybe tell us like to what capacity is it being used? What's the use case? What does API look like, or something along those lines?
Sure.
Maybe at the next meeting or the one after that.
Next one in December?
The next one will be December 15th.
I probably won't attend.
You won't? Okay.
But come January, probably.
Okay, sometime in January. Okay, I'll just write down sometime in January, and I'll reach out to you and we'll schedule something. How you've been working on the streaming stuff still? Is that going on? Is that done?
There's nothing I'm actually working on. I think there's still some leftover things about the life cycle of agent, like events around agents.
Okay.
Instead of the partition thing, can change. I think adding more space, possible space to agent than in the past.
Okay.
So I need to actually talk to Neil about this with management. I was never able to schedule it with all of us. I've been dreaming about adding some event to the agent. Maybe I'll put some kind of proposal there.
Okay.
This is really nothing to.
Okay.
You can ask me, like, I might bring another coworker and talk about our work on stress testing for Mesos.
Okay.
That's
awesome.
That might require some legal approval. So
yes.
we can commit when we do that.
Right.
I'll try. Yeah.
So do you think there's something to talk about in the streaming area, or probably not? Not really. Okay. Yeah, I'll reach out to Kapil around package building stuff. I'll ask Neil to talk about the partition aware stuff. Then I was going to ask you to talk about the multi-role stuff. Do you think next meeting, the one after that?
Next week, if it's December 15th, no.
Okay.
But January works.
Okay.
Like I'll be away.
I see.
Before December 15th.
Yeah, we'll have to figure out what to do for the next 2 meetings, because 15th, maybe people will be around, but the one after that, I doubt anyone's going to be around. Yeah. 15 should be okay, I think. So we'll still, I mean, how many of you will be here on the 15th? 15, 20. Yeah. Okay, so not a lot of us.
Could delay it to the 5th.
January 5th?
Yeah.
January 5th?
And then, looks like we're doing them at the beginning of every month.
Well, we could do like one next week and then jump. to January 5th if you want to do one
Yeah,
before January 5th.
Yeah.
I think most people will be around next week.
yeah, okay.
And if Kevin's already ready to do a demo, maybe.
Okay, let me think about it. I might actually just push to January. Just jump there. Let people have their vacation and stuff. Okay, yeah, I'll send out an email. But I'm leaning towards just meeting in January. Let's do that. Okay, I think we're out of time. Thanks for joining people on Hangout. How's that, Joseph? Who's the one in the middle? Who is? James. Thanks for joining. All right. Thanks.